One.
Morning, Rabbi.
We are learning Mishna Nazir, Parak Dal, Chapter 4, Mishnah 5, Mishnah Hey, Mishnah 5. All right, so we have been mentioning how a husband has the ability to cancel his wife's Naziris. Now, his ability to do so is based on the ability that Torah gives him to cancel his wife's vows. Vows specifically that either are vows of inu nefesh, that she's afflicting herself in some way, or a vow that would have some kind of that would have a negative effect on the relationship. So Naziris, where she says she's not going to drink wine, that's called inu nefesh. I mean, she's afflicting herself, and therefore he has the right to cancel it. Now, our Mishnah discusses, is there a point where he can't cancel it anymore? So the Mishnah says like this: Nizrak aleha ech min adamim. If the blood of any one of her offerings was sprinkled or was thrown, any yachal hafer, he may not cancel the Naziris anymore. So she's as far as she's completed her term, and she's bringing her kabbanis. Mm-hmm. And she's at that point, and the Mishnah says once one of the bloods of any one of those sacrifices, once one of them is sprinkled, is thrown onto the Mizbeach, which is part of the Avodah, which is really the main part of the Avodah. That's the main part of every carbon. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Once that is done, if he decides, no more Naziris, I'm canceling the Naziris, which the result of that would be what? What would be the result of that? What difference would it make if he cancels it at this point?
It's too late.
How do you know? Why not? What do you mean? Why is it too late? Because
I already finished.
Until she brings her karbana, she can't drink wine or cut her hair. Okay? Mm-hmm. However, you are correct in the sense that the reason the Mishnah says he can't do it anymore is because once the blood of one of the sacrifices is sprinkled, she may now cut her hair and drink wine and become tamei from a mace. I mean, if she does it before the rest of her kabbalah, she's going to be in trouble. But the point is, in all practical purposes, her Naziris is over. So what is he? So what? Now again, does that mean there's nothing to cancel anymore? There is what to cancel, because if he were to cancel it, and he could do so, she wouldn't have to cut her hair. She wouldn't have to bring the rest of the karbanos either, which would be a waste of the carbon that was brought. But the point is that it's not like there isn't what to stop, because at the end of the day, she has no more isser to cut her hair. She actually has to cut her hair. It's part of the process of the karbana. She has to shave her head, right? So if he wants to say, I don't want that to happen, the Mishnah is saying that you meaning she has no more privilege. She can drink wine, right? There's no more inu nefesh. Right? There is no more inu nefesh. That's the point here. I should mention that. The main point is she can drink wine. Once she can drink wine, there's no more inu nefesh. There's no more affliction to say he has the right to go ahead and annul it. Now, what about cutting her hair? Is shaving herself bald? Is that considered inu nefesh? Is that considered something that can get in between them and their relationship? So apparently Tanakama says no. We'll get back to that. We'll get back to that later. But the Mishnah is saying that once one of the bloods was sprinkled, he cannot cancel it anymore. Rabbi Akiva Omer. Now, the point is like this. The point that we have to point out for the next part of the Mishnah is that we're talking about that the blood was sprinkled. Okay? Rabbi Akiva says, Afilo nishrata ala akis b'kala behemes eni yachal hafer. Says Rabbi Akiva, even if the blood wasn't sprinkled yet, it was just the animal was shechted. There, Rabbi Akiva also says that he cannot cancel the Naziris anymore. Why? Says Rabbi Akiva, because the sacrifice will go to waste. Hefsid kachim. He is now basically wasting a carbon that was the animal was shechted for a carbon, right? He's wasting it. So the halacha there. So we say there that Rabbi Akiva says if you're wasting the carbon, you can't cancel it anymore. Right? It's not about the fact. Now again, at this point of time, before the blood was sprinkled, she can't drink wine, and therefore it is still technically a vow of inu nefesh, a vow of self-affliction. However, the point Rabbi Akiva says is, no, you can't cancel the vow to waste the carbon. Now they're bringing down here in the notes a very important part of what Rabbi Akiva says. Now, and that is, although Rabbi Akiva says one of her offerings, Rabbi Akiva says even if one of the animals was shechted, sounds like any one of them, but it's not that way. Rabbi Akiva actually refers to her chatas offering. If the Ola or Nazir's ram were slaughtered, they would not be wasted since they could be saved in a way described in the Gemara over the Gemara Nazir. They don't elaborate on that here. The point is that if the whole reason Akiva says the husband can't cancel is because he's wasting the sacrifice, that only applies to the chatas. Once the chatas would be shechted as a chatas, and now he were to cancel the naziris and you couldn't bring it, there'd be nothing you could do with it. However, if it's any of the other ones, whether it's the Ola or the Shlamim, even if they were shechted as an animal, as a sacrifice for the Nazir, and the Naziris was canceled, there is something that you could do to save those sacrifices, and therefore it doesn't apply there. There is no issue of wasting a sacrifice. Now the Mishnah continues. B'meh devarim amurim. When are these words said? Meaning what we just said, according to the Tanna Kama, according to the first opinion, that once it's sprinkled, you cannot annul it. That once it's sprinkled, you can't cancel it. Kiva says even if the chatas was slaughtered, you can't cancel it. What is that? But the galachas hatahara. This is referring to the cutting of the hair that takes place when she is the cutting of the hair of purity. That's the term that's used when she brings her karbanas, that by which she ends her term. Right? She's not cutting her hair now. She's bringing sacrifices because her naziris was interrupted by becoming impure. She's bringing the karbanis and sprinkling the blood here because of the fact that the term is over. That's called hagalachas tahara, the hair cutting of purity. Her term is over, and she's bringing those karbanis. That is when we say that. That is when the Tanna Kama said, let's say that once one of the bloods were sprinkled, he can't cancel it anymore because she can still cut her hair. Because she can drink wine. I'm sorry. But if let's say the whole case over here is why is she bringing karbanas and cutting her hair? Because she became tameh in the middle, which means if she becomes tameh from a dead body in the middle, any nazir becomes tameh in the middle of their term, they have to bring sacrifices, they have to cut their hair, and they have to start all over again. That in that case, the haircut, nothing there is going to permit her to drink wine in that situation. And therefore, when we say but he could cancel it if we're talking about the cut when she's going through this process of karbanis because she became tameh. Why? I do not want a deprived wife. Deprived wife is a way of saying if she is afflicting herself in the sense that she can't drink wine, I don't want that. And that applies here. Because if the only reason she's bringing a carbon and the blood is being sprinkled is because she became tameh, she became impure, then the sprinkling of the blood does not permit her to drink wine. And therefore, she still has a neder of inui nefesh, still has a neder of self-affliction. Therefore, he can go ahead and he can say, I don't want this anymore. He could cancel it. Now, what's interesting is that clearly, Rabbi Akiva said before, even if you don't sprinkle the blood, the animal was just shechted. If you're going to cancel it, it's going to go to waste. And if it's going to go to waste, we don't allow him to cancel it. It doesn't sound like that's true by the Galachas Hatuma, because it says by Madram word, that's everybody. Mm-hmm. Everybody, meaning I shouldn't say everybody. We're going to see somebody who argues on what we just said. But it was just said that what was said was by when she's going through the process of ending the term of her naziris, that's when we have the opinions of the Tanna Kama Rabbi Akiva. But everybody seems to agree that if she's cutting her hair for tuma, that he could cancel it. If you shechted, right? They shechted the chatas. She has to bring a chatas offering there too. Where she goes and one of the animal was shechted for her because she was tameh. And you go in and you cancel it now. It goes to waste. So why here would he agree that it's okay? So let me read to you here from the bottom. Even Rabbi Akiva agrees with this. Although he is concerned about wasted offerings and therefore does not allow a husband to cancel his wife's vow after her offering is slaughtered, that is only in the case of a shaving of a Nazir who is tar, since that woman will be able to drink wine shortly anyway, as soon as the blood is thrown. Rabbi Akiva does not allow an offering to be wasted just to permit her to drink a few minutes later. Meaning, think about it, right? She's going to be able to drink wine in a few minutes, right? That's the whole that's what everything revolves around. So the fact that now, you don't want a woman that doesn't drink wine. In a few minutes she'll drink wine. What's the big deal? Okay, so when there's only a short period of time between when she'll drink wine and she won't drink wine, then we say you can't cancel if that entails wasting a sacrifice. Yeah. However, Akiva agrees that if she's not going to be able to drink wine after any of these karbanis, then the mere fact that you're canceling you're wasting a carbon, you're wasting a sacrifice, that Rabbi Akiva does not say is enough of a reason to say he can't cancel it. If basically in a situation where she will remain forbidden to drink wine, the fact that you're going to cancel doesn't stop you from canceling it. Because again, then there's a really legitimate point of saying, I don't want a woman who deprives herself. Now, Rabbi said, who's Rabbi Danasi, he argues on the whole Mishnah that even where we're talking about that she was cutting her hair, she brought her karbanis because she was tar, her term is ending. Once the blood is sprinkled, we say she can drink the wine. Nonetheless, Rita says that he can still cancel it, which means according to Rabbi, it's still considered a neder it's still a neder that he has the power to cancel. Why? Because he could say, I don't want a wife whose head is shaved. Meaning, according to Rabbi, the ability to cancel the neder now is because it is now it's something that affects their marriage. He says, I don't want a woman who shaves her head. It annoys me. It's something that repulses me. Okay, and therefore he says, that's something that affects their marriage. Therefore, he can still cancel. So even though she can drink the wine, he still has the power to cancel it, according to Rabbi, because it is something that affects their marriage. What does the Tanna Kama hold about that? The Tanna Kama didn't seem to be bothered by that. Tanna Kama says once she can drink wine, it's not anymore self-affliction. You can go ahead, and he can't cancel it anymore. What about the fact she's going to have to shave her head? He says, I don't want a wife with a shaved head. Says the Bartuna explains, according to the Tanna Kama, she'll wear a wig. She'll wear a sheitel for a short time until the hair grows back. She'll wear a sheitel. And Rabbi says, no, that still bothers him. So that's what. So again, that it's a question about how to evaluate what a husband feels, but that's going to be the difference. According to Rabbi, he says that as long as there's a point, even if she could drink the wine already, because once the blood was sprinkled. But if at the end of the day she has to cut her hair, she has to shave her head, that is enough for him to say that I don't want that affects our marriage, even if it means she's going to wear a wig instead for a short time, and therefore he still has the power to cancel it. Tanna Kama says no, that's not an issue, and the only issue was a question of self-affliction of not drinking wine. Once the blood is sprinkled, she could drink the wine, and therefore there is no ability for him to cancel. And the halacha follows the Tanna Kama that once the blood is sprinkled, he cannot cancel it anymore. But were it to be before the blood is sprinkled, which means that she doesn't become permitted to drink the wine, even though it would only be a few minutes, if he could have waited a few minutes and she could have drank the wine anyway, nonetheless, according to the Tanna Kama, because at this point of time it's a vow of self-affliction, he has the power to cancel it, which, practically speaking, would therefore stop her from having to shave her head, because it comes out she was never a Nazira. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi. So,
don't ask me